Statehouse Watch is on. From Trenton, we explain what's happening inside the Statehouse, speaking directly with legislators, policymakers, and budget experts to bring you the facts behind the decisions.
There's no doubt that energy bills are about to skyrocket this summer.
$300 million to Newark billionaires? That ain't cutting it for rural New Jersey. Enough of it.
With your hosts, Jack Brangan and Constance Ditzel. So stick around. Here's Jack and Connie.
Hi, good evening. It's Constance, and I'm sitting here with Jack Brangan.
Hello.
So we're going to have an interesting show tonight. Our guest is going to be Audrey Lane, and we're going to tell you why you should care what she has to say. She's my personal guru for the New Jersey state budget, which affects you in very big ways. It's budget season. The budget is due June 30th, and she's going to have something to say about that. Legislators are concerned about end of year, and the majority party adds a lot of last-minute budget items to the budget.
Yep.
Right.
There's so many things going on in New Jersey. You know, you hardly get any time to relax. We know right when Mikey Sherrill was inaugurated, immediately we flipped into a sanctuary state. There were a series of bills that were passed. Then right after that, we changed the way vaccinations will be handled. We pulled away from the CDC in Washington, and now, the vaccination schedule will be determined by the New Jersey Department of Health. And now the mother load here with the budget. Okay, this is coming up. As Constance said, we're down to the last couple of days, and our budget has been growing quite a bit over the years. I think one of the simple benchmarks, and we'll probably get into this, is during the Phil Murphy years, those 8 years, the budget increased $20 billion. And I don't think anyone feels that $20 billion. You know, it's out there being spent, but I don't think anybody feels that $20 billion richer. So we are still the state with the highest property taxes, in the state. And the worst thing about that is that last year we were the highest, and the year before that we were the highest property taxes in the state. In fact, we've been the highest property taxes in the country, I should say, for the past 15 years.
What a great laurel. What a great laurel. And you're going to hear tonight how we really top everything with business taxes, too. And that affects you. That affects all of us, the corporate taxes.
Yeah, so you start to wonder whether, we've had basically the same party that's been in power. You wonder whether they're on our side, meaning the side of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
We also have we have people leaving the state, and we have large corporations leaving the state. And I think there was a great advantage to New Jersey at one time, or for decades in the past, where our geography was really our advantage, because we were just outside of New York City and not far from Washington, D.C.
And we had ports. We were a manufacturing hub. We had a shipbuilding.
But the ports. But being near New York and Washington, D.C. doesn't matter anymore where we are in the world. And when I was working, we worked every day with people in Hyderabad, India. So where you sit really doesn't matter anymore. So I think if we're sitting in the state with the highest corporate tax, why not move to Florida or another state, or right next door to Pennsylvania? They have a plan to lower their corporate tax 1% every year over the next 5 years. So New Jersey really needs to make some changes, and Audrey Lane is going to be here to explain this a lot better than we can, and maybe how do we, what the path is coming out of the woods here. So, Mr. Producer, why don't we bring up the first video there?
Yeah.
And we'll show Audrey.
The corporate business tax, which continues to be a problem in New Jersey. And I have heard today that there's a possibility that some of tax credits and things like that may be scaled back moving forward. How do you continue to advocate for the business community and really make the case that this is an important, it sounds like it's already being received, but this affordability for businesses, the affordability doesn't stop with residents.
The New Jersey Statehouse Watch is on. From Trenton, we...
Yeah. Hi, Audrey. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
So we're going to be doing a couple things tonight. First thing we want to ask you is your group, your company, I guess, how you got to where you are, how long you've been doing what you're doing. I haven't mentioned the name yet of Garden State Initiative, so I'll let you do that.
And thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I'm the president of Garden State Initiative. I've been here for 4 years and took on the role of president 2 years ago. It's an organization that I watched from afar, and I do feel fortunate to be part of it. As you've mentioned, and I don't know if you want me to jump in about our mission or...
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So our mission, and it's hard not to get excited about this, but to strengthen New Jersey by advancing common sense policy solutions that promote economic investment, new investment into the state, job growth, and innovation, and really to look at policies in New Jersey with regard to being a return on investment for the taxpayer. So everything that we look at is through an economic lens.
And you're located where in the state?
So we work out of Morristown. I mean, physically right now I'm in Bernardsville, but our office has traditionally been in Morristown.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about the New Jersey state budget,
Terrific.
Which you've already mentioned it's been creeping up over the years. But there's terminology that surrounds this budget that can be confusing. It was confusing to me. We hear terms like structural deficit, and we also hear things like we have a surplus at the same time. So simultaneously, we've got this deficit and a surplus. What is that all about? How is that possible?
Absolutely. So let's boil this down. You're 100% right in your observation of the budget going up exponentially. Over the past 8 years, our budget went up almost 70%. That's absurd. That's a crazy number, and it's clearly not sustainable. When it comes to the structural deficit, that means that on an annual basis, our revenue is not meeting our expenditures. So hence the structural deficit. Now, by Constitution in New Jersey, we need a balanced budget. So that means we need to be able to pay our bills. So what we do is we pull money from our surplus, which is really a fancy way of saying our savings account, I guess, if I have to boil it down. So we're pulling money from our surplus. And that was largely funded by COVID money. We received trillions in federal funding, which we are really going through at a rapid rate. As a matter of fact, in the next couple of years, we've projected that we'll go through all of it at the current rate of spending. Right.
So what was the high point of the surplus that we had? Was it
the high point would have been in 20.
I had heard of like 10 billion.
You might be right. I'm drawing a blank on that right now, but the high point would be easy to look up. It would be, back in 2020.
Right. So it's somewhere around 10 billion. And because we've had this deficit, we've been drawing on this surplus. So it's been going down and down. And now this is what's going to be interesting about what Mikey Sherrill is going to reveal of how much of this deficit we're going to continue to eat into. Because even to this day, we still have a structural deficit, right?
Yeah, indeed. She's reduced the amount of the structural deficit. So that's on the positive, but there is still a structural deficit, and her budget as presented is $60.7 billion. And there was news coming out last night that is the agreed upon number. It seems that the Senate and Assembly majority leaders are on board with this number, and there's been some shuffling of allocations behind closed doors, but it does seem that they've landed on this number.
Okay.
You know, I think you said that we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
It's one of the lines I say all the time, Constance.
It's a great line. And the other
Yeah.
thing, I just wanted to rewind a minute. I don't know if listeners know what a structural deficit is. Could you just tell them in a sentence or two? What's the definition of a structural deficit?
It just simply means this, that we are spending more in a year than our revenue that we take in. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's a term we thought was well worth bringing up. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. The as far as our revenue goes, are we steady with revenue in New Jersey? In other words, has the revenue been going up every year, or has it dipped in past years?
We're okay on revenue. It is as projected, and so our revenue it's slightly above the projection for this year, which may have given them a little wiggle room in the budget conversations. But there is volatility within different revenue streams. So, for example, our corporate business revenue is down, and that's something I think that you want to get into, as later in the conversations is our corporate business taxes. But that is indeed about a volatile revenue source.
So in the June 10th post, you said there's unspent. Now you mentioned the COVID money is one thing that we had. Then you mentioned unspent discretionary spending from prior budgets could be an area for savings. And in your March report found that discretionary spending inserted into the state budget has surged $2 billion between fiscal year 24 and 26. So what are you saying with this? That we had unspent money from prior budgets.
Correct. So that gets rolled over. That goes into the surplus if there's unspent. So there is sometimes money, and you'll see money move later in the year through different, and it has to be done legislatively. But there's just money that's moved. Maybe all of funding for certain roads wasn't used. I mean, it's inevitable that your allocations are not exactly in line. I mean, this happens on the local level as well. And then money's moved. So it's possible that you have allocations that were not 100% right. But in discretionary funding, I think, I'm not remembering that exact post, but yes, I mean, we're earmarked for hundreds of millions of dollars for 2026.
Are these the same as the Christmas tree items, or is that a totally different?
Yeah, discretionary spending, pork spending, Christmas tree items, that's all the same exact term in different languages. And we'll see when the budget passes next week, we will see discretionary spending. We won't find out exactly how that's earmarked for months. And there has been some legislation proposed, actually on both sides of the aisle, to shed light on that, so that we know who proposed the spending and when and how much. So
in the process, when do we see the budget, her proposed budget? When will you see it? When do the legislators see it? Who's in the back room with?
That is the $1 million question. And actually it's the billions of dollars question, right? So who has seen it now? Obviously the governor's team. And then there are people behind closed doors that have seen the budget. Leadership, the majority party leadership has seen. But I could tell you, in speaking with members on the budget committees, that not everyone in the budget committees has seen the budget. To my knowledge, no Republicans have seen it. I could be wrong, but I was in touch, and it seems to be that that's what I'm hearing. So who's seen it? A handful of people.
All right.
So you're saying this just happened today?
So yesterday there's a press announcement that went out that the $60.7 billion budget was agreed upon.
Okay.
And that was the total, the 60?
Yeah, that is what was proposed by Governor Sherrill in her March address. And it seems that number has stuck for now.
Okay.
until they vote on it. But if you're looking at history, past history over the last several years, the legislators will not see that budget until a couple of hours before they need to vote on it. And it is hundreds of pages. So there is really no way
Who
for,
agreed on it? When you say they agreed on it, who's they? Who agreed on it if the legislators haven't seen it?
majority leadership. So
Okay.
Senator Scutari and Speaker Coughlin and their teams, and probably a couple of others. I really don't know, but I do know, and that they will have been in meetings with the governor and her staff, whoever she chooses to be in those meetings as well.
Okay. I mean, heaven forbid citizens see it. I mean, it's one thing.
I have gone to.
See it.
I'm sorry. I have gone to Trenton for those late night meetings, and it's frustrating because even if you're in Trenton, those late nights, you're not going to see that budget. It will go directly to the staff and the legislators who vote on it, and they will not have had time to go through it. And yeah, I've been there, and I still can't see it. So, and I know the press has been also very critical of this, and they have not received even a term sheet of it, or any more information than members of the staff. So this has been an issue, and it is why at Garden State Initiative we launched njbudget.com, particularly to begin to put some transparency, particularly around this discretionary and pork spending.
Yeah, I would recommend people watching this to go to njbudget.com. That's really a nice website in terms of simplifying where all this money goes. So you can look up right to your own county and find out allocations to the county, where I think Camden County got $50 million or something. And, when I look at that $50 million, I see things like roads and pipes, which I like, the infrastructure. Certain things, I'm just, it looks like a black hole, $1 million going to some fund somewhere that'll do something in the county. And you really wonder who's watching this money, where is the oversight, where's the audit? I mean, maybe there's something there, but.
Well, why don't we jump to the first area that people do identify with these black holes? One thing people do identify with very much is schools.
Yes.
School funding. So are we ready to jump to the different categories?
Absolutely.
School funding, big deal. In fact, the governor's already stated that I think the quote was, "I know it's a ton of money, but they're not going to work on changing it for 26, 27. And yet, people have had teacher layoffs. Cherry Hill had 72 layoffs.
Yeah.
My town lost a school. It's just been outrageous. So tell us a little bit about the school funding formula.
So we did a report that we released late last year on the school funding formula, and really started to highlight some of the issues with it. Again, you're going to hear me say this a lot, but there is a lack of transparency in the school funding formula, and there's also the funding amounts are released very late in the budget process for towns to respond. So as towns need to allocate money for school districts, they're not really sure how much they're going to receive from the state. There's some recommendations that we made because there's a disparity in the allocation of school funding to different types of school districts. So urban areas are getting a lot of funding, and it's needed. However, there are a lot of areas that are not urban that are missing the boat here because they may or may not have the availability to bring in more rateables or bring in more tax paying entities, because either they don't have buildable land, and part of that has to do with the Highlands Act. So there's protected land. They can't build more to make more rateables, so they can't earn more money to put into the school district, while the school funding formula assumes that they could. And so I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible, is that a lot of these districts are kind of handcuffed in their ability to provide more revenue.
So the Highlands, there's I know the Highlands, and then down in South Jersey, it's the Pinelands.
Right.
They're not able to build houses, so therefore families don't move in, so therefore there's no property taxes generated, and they're not allowed to build. So they are handcuffed at a certain number of homes.
And while there's a structure behind the school funding formula, there are a lot of kind of add-ons, if you will, that are not easily seen or able to, we can't project for them. So we don't know really how this final number comes to some of the school district. There's a local fair share, you'll hear the LFS, and that is what the state assumes, and this is really what we're talking about here. The state assumes that a municipality or a school district can earn on its own. And oftentimes that number is just, it's not realistic due to a property tax cap and or this idea that it's not buildable land for, or, you know, for either new homes or for corporate revenue.
Yeah, I know the Abbott school districts that was a court decision, you know, so that
Yep.
this is it's already left. That takes, you know, maybe 40% of the total school budget, and I don't know, maybe another 5% or something like that of the entire state budget. I'm not sure what the number is.
And
but-
yet some of them are struggling.
Yeah.
Camden has like a $91 million deficit,
Right.
and they're part of the top 10 schools that get the most funding. And their funding is manned by the state, by the way, in Camden.
The other interesting fact is there really is no correlation between the spending and performance in school districts. So, you know, this idea that the higher the funding into the school, this will lead to a better performance, is actually, there's no correlation whatsoever. Sometimes it goes in the opposite direction. But there are 22 school districts that receive over 50% of this funding. And if you don't fall into there, I mean, that in itself is a telling number.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone is looking to shortchange any of these districts, but there has to be some progress shown, you know, in test scores and that sort of thing.
I'm
Because
sure.
I don't think, it's also in the state constitution, I don't think funding one district cannot, on the other hand, hurt another district. I think there's some sort of, and I'm not sure that that's not happening now. I know Tom's River, you know, they're actually selling buildings, I think, to, you know, try to close the gap.
And there are school districts trying to do all sorts of creative things. There are school districts up by me that are starting to charge student athletes to participate in sports programs so that they don't have to cut them. A couple of years ago, I'm sure many of your listeners have heard about the brouhaha in Newark, because there was a party thrown at the end of the year that was over tens of thousands of dollars. So they can't spend the money enough. They're throwing parties for themselves, where you have other districts that are, you know, shutting down buildings and cutting programs. So clearly an adjustment needs to be made. There needs to be transparency so that school districts and local municipalities can plan. And additionally, there are numbers that are completely outdated that are used in the school funding formula. We're using data from 2009, and it really does need to be updated and reviewed and brought to, you know,
That's astounding.
2026.
That's astounding that our governor is sitting there. Well, it's a lot of money. We really can't deal with that yet. We're going to let it go for 26 and 27, and they're working from 2009 data.
The good news is that her staff has indicated that it is on the agenda. So I will take, you know, that as a positive. The previous administration did not even discuss changes to the school funding formula. So it is a positive that it's even being discussed as something that is on the agenda, just likely not for 2026.
Okay. There's another fun topic. You want to bring it up?
There's plenty. Tax credits is one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to corporate taxes, but yes, tax credits. I don't think a lot of taxpayers exactly know. They know that you can have a tax credit with the IRS, and it just sounds like, gee, that's nice. I don't have to pay that. But what they don't think, and I didn't put two and two together, when you have these large sports stadiums where there's an 82 million tax credit, that credit goes to the developer, but the money that's not coming in has to come from somewhere. So they're pulling it from Jack and Connie and Audrey and,
Right.
and everybody else sitting out there.
Yeah. So
It's true.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's true. There are some of these bigger, sexier deals that bring in exciting venues or, we've been critical of film tax credits. And as much as Netflix may be bringing in some jobs, they've really been given a lot of leeway. You can look at our report. It was written by Dr. Charles Steindl, and he really breaks down film tax credits. Most economists can break down film tax credits and tell you they're not a good return on investment for taxpayers. And the other problem is it's a losing game. New Jersey will throw these tax credits. Louisiana has done this. California is now sweetening their pot. And so these film companies, they follow the tax credits. They are a movable feast, and they follow the tax credits. So much of the credits will never recoup. That being said, will remains to be seen what happens with Netflix, but that's not the full extent of our film tax credits.
Right. So in that case, yes, since 2018, the movie industry have gotten almost $1 billion in tax credits. And as Constance says, if this is taxes not collected, this means there's a bridge somewhere that's not going to be built.
And we're talking about an industry that employs 0.01% of people on a national level. This is not a high employment sector, nationally or New Jersey. So throwing this kind of money at a sector that really impacts a low number of people is not what we would consider a great return on investment of taxpayer dollars.
Well,
I was just going to say, I think there's this thing called the Aspire program. Are you familiar with that? It's a tax credit, basically, program. And the idea is that there is a net benefit to the tax credit. So if we give out $1 million in tax credits, we'll get $1.2 million back. That's the net benefit. I don't know whether this applies here in this case or not, but because the numbers that I'm seeing here for at least the film industry, we're getting like 30 cents back on the dollar. That sort of.
We're not gonna hit that number that you're setting with your Aspire. We're just not.
Do you know, is anybody sort of auditing, or is there any oversight on these tax credits? I know the production centers
do so. We'll keep an eye on it as much as we can, but some of the credits are actually hard to follow.
Yeah, no, I mean within Mikey Sherrill's organization, is there an organization that follows, the net benefit of tax credits? Anybody watching the store in Trenton is really good.
There may be. I'm not sure that would be a public report, but I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest things with business, we can't not mention this, the corporate tax issue. Corporate taxes, how they affect taxpayers, and what's happening with our big business lately. I'll let you talk about that. We could all talk about it a little, but.
Oh, goodness. Well, I can tell you this. We have a group of interns this year at GSI, and it's a fantastic group, but whenever they start to bring up the corporate business tax, they know I'm going to get on my soapbox about this. And they gave a little presentation on it today. Listen, we have the highest corporate business tax in the nation. We have lost at this point about 30% of our Fortune 500 companies. Most recently, Samsung took off, as did Exxon, just within the since March. This is a big deal, and why should we care? Just the three of us talking and having this conversation. Why should we talk about a corporate tax? From the outset, it looks like that would be something over here, something people are talking about, corporations. It's a whole different world, but it does impact us. First of all, it impacts jobs. It impacts the cost of goods and services in our state. Do you think that corporations are just going to eat that extra 3% of a corporate tax? Of course not. They're just going to pass it on. There's this old saying, right, that corporations don't pay taxes. People do. And no matter how high those taxes go, they're going to be passed along. And so corporate business tax is something that I've been passionate about. We released a report by Dr. Laffer a couple of years ago. He did great work, and you know, of course, he's famous for the Laffer curve. At which point there's a tax threshold, and you lose revenue. We looked at states like Indiana, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Iowa, and as they intentionally step down their corporate business tax, the revenue goes up. It's a misnomer that if you increase the tax rate, you will get more money. It's actually, the converse is true. And if we look at the data, you will find that it's an intentional step down with guardrails. And Pennsylvania was smart enough to use their COVID money as their guardrails. And we should have done the same. But if you look at that, you'll see that eventually the revenue goes up. And you can watch, I mean, North Carolina is a brilliant study in how to adjust corporate taxes and make a state business friendly. And it's a state that's thriving. It's a state that is bringing in young workers and employers and corporations and manufacturing and innovation. And, you know, it's something we can watch. The good news is that we can replicate these policies. They're all here in front of us. We just have to embrace it and, you know, hopefully get others on board to begin to make some of these changes.
Yeah, so is North Carolina reducing theirs over time? Is that just like
Absolutely. And their goal is to bring it down, you know, as low as possible.
And Johnson & Johnson has already put a plant there, a $2 billion plant there. They're investing in Florida, North Carolina. Like you said, they're still headquartered here. But who knows, maybe this is a slow move out. Budweiser, you know, your favorite beer at the shore, not mine, I don't like Budweiser, but they're pulling out of Newark, I think. They've been there 75 years, Anheuser-Busch.
We have this saying, you know, a lot of companies, they may maintain presence here, and we certainly have a long history with Johnson & Johnson, New Jersey, but they're quietly quitting New Jersey, and they're going elsewhere, and they're growing in other states that are more conducive to their business models.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have a quote here from Rush Limbaugh.
Oh,
okay.
Hear it.
This is, to me, this hits the nail on the head. When Americans have money in their pocket, they can spend and can spend it. That's when capitalism thrives. It's not the government spending money that creates jobs. It's people buying goods and services. And that's really what we have to do. We cannot tax our way out of these problems. The only way is to lower the taxes, put money into the pockets of the 10 million people that live in this state, and give them the opportunity to have extra money to buy cars, buy furniture, buy TVs, you know, buy more clothes, take vacations, and that sort of thing. And that's where the revenue will come up, and it'll generate more money than taxes ever will. And
let's make sure they all have jobs here, right? I mean, that's where it all begins.
Well, there's another big category. By the way, the second segment, we're going to talk about solutions. There is hope. I know you have come up with some solutions, at least some ideas. And before we jump to that, one of the fastest growing budget items is Medicaid. 1 in 5 are on Medicaid. Very fast growing. We've also got the SNAP program that's being talked about right now. Any comments on this issue?
So there have been federal changes to how Medicaid's being funded, and New Jersey needs to respond to it. If our error rate remains high, we will lose funding, and to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And so there are changes that need to be made. There needs to be verification every 6 months with regard to the benefits. And just so that everyone understands, Medicaid and SNAP benefits are a joint are jointly funded by the federal government and the state government. So that's, certainly something to keep in mind. And there's a match. If New Jersey does not improve their error rates, we're going to lose some of that matching money, and we'll be responsible for more of it. Medicaid was never really intended to cover 1 in 5 individuals. It was intended as a backstop, and the fact that it's being used at this level is concerning in itself. So it's certainly something we need to keep an eye on. And I've been facilitating conversations with staff in Trenton. So there are adjustments to be made, and there are ways to make sure that we're getting up to speed, but it has to be a priority.
Yeah. So Medicaid's $24 billion, 14 comes from the federal, and about 10 from New Jersey taxpayers.
So kind of a 60-40, it looks like.
Yeah. So, I don't know the number of people on it, but it covers all children, whether they're documented or not. So, which I think, you have to do. But what happens, it's just going to start continue growing. So,
and some of the other changes that are being made is there will now be this work requirement, right, for 80 hours a month. And that work requirement can be met by either part-time employment or hopefully, full-time employment, but employment, taking classes and or training, and volunteer work also counts. So there just needs to be some buy-in. And I think, that was an addition that was largely bipartisan. There was a lot of agreement that would be, a good addition to the program. A couple of other changes that happened with SNAP is the age increased from 54 to 64 years old for those benefits. So that will change, the math a little bit there. And these changes will roll out through 2034. I just made a few notes of this, and the work rules are now implemented they now are included for parents of minors ages 14 and up. So that's something that's a little bit different. And it now includes veterans, those who are possibly in a homeless situation, and or those who had formerly been in foster care. So those are new additions that are now being considered.
Yeah.
Well, I think we want to talk about solutions or the way out, but we'll take a break first and stick around because you might want to hear some of their models that are out there, some of their ideas our guest has as to how we can go fish our way out.
So we'll be right back.
America's Pulse Network. The mainstream media is bought and paid for. The truth is twisted to fit their agenda, but America is waking up because podcasts are the future for trusted media. Welcome to the America's Pulse Network. It is a network built by patriots that upholds the Constitution. The America's Pulse Network stands for God, truth, and the America First movement. There is no corporate propaganda, no government spin, just real news, real talk, and real voices fighting for faith, freedom, and the future of this great nation with common sense. Here are some of America's Pulse Network podcasts. Alexandra Levine Live, hosted by Alexandra Levine. Jersey Shore Podcast, hosted by Damon Galdo. The Conservative Corner, hosted by Seth Eisenberg. APN's The Pulse, hosted by Alexandra, Damon, Elena, and Seth. So tune into America's Pulse Network on the following social media platforms: X/Twitter, Rumble, Truth Social, Parler, Facebook, and YouTube. Join the revolution. Because the pulse of America beats for God and country. America's Pulse Network is for faith, family, freedom, and truth.
So we are back, and do we still have Audrey? You with us?
We have our guest, Damon. Yeah, there she is.
There she is. So, in terms of solutions, one thing, we haven't talked about the teacher pension yet. And yeah, I know this is a defined benefit, and I know you had at least one podcast with a couple of actuarial folks that were excellent and painted a picture of an alternative defined contribution that really looked very attractive, much better deal than the current pension.
This was an interesting report, and actually we started working on it, and then as I was doing some research, I saw that Governor Murphy at one point had put together a task force to combat the teacher shortage that we were facing after COVID. And there were about 30 recommendations by that task force, one of which was to reimagine the pension. And so we were not alone in thinking that this was a deterrent for new teachers. And in fact, young teachers are deterred by the fact that a large part of compensation is built into a very long runway of 25 plus year buy-in. And young people don't want that anymore. We've been discussing the fact that given tax situations, jobs are much more mobile now than they used to be. This generation of young people will move much more than every generation prior. And so the fact that teachers could begin with a compensation package where their pension or their retirement savings is their money, and it's portable and it's flexible and they have ownership of it, as opposed to having to buy in and be in the same place for 25 years. And really, it's a great solution, and the private sector figured this out decades ago. And in the end, there's no difference in the payout for the teacher.
Right. So this is a pension defined contribution that I think is already being offered to the colleges and universities in New Jersey.
Yeah, we also added that into the report. The fact is this is already available to our professors. So why is it that we have this available at a higher education level and we don't allow our K-12 teachers the same accessibility to this program? It's a great point.
The Cadillac version of this type of program now, they did, here's an example that they gave. If you have a young teacher that leaves after 7 years, let's say they move to another town, and under the current pension, first of all, they contribute more for those 7 years. It's like 7.5% or something like that. Right. They won't leave with what they put in, but if they were on this other plan, they will leave not only with what they put in, but what the state put in as well. So they own that whole package. So in the example they gave, after 7 years, this young person, if they had the standard pension, they would leave with $30,000. If they had the new plan, it was like $66,000. It was almost a little bit more than double, or just about double, because the contributions are personal, and the state, under this current plan, if you leave, you get your money, but with the new plan, you get everything. You get whatever the state put in, or your employer, I should say.
And this solution really is a win-win. It's a win as a recruitment tool for new and talented teachers who would be deterred by the former program, and it's also a win for the state in the long run. In the very short term, it's a little bit of a glitch of catch up because there is a little bit more investment by the state, but it quickly turns in favor of the state. And we really do need to start making changes to our structural policies for the long term. These policies, these pensions that are hanging over our budget, also health plans, we need to reimagine those. And it's not that we don't want to give our employees in our state wonderful benefits. Of course we do. But there are ways to make adjustments that are a win.
So while we're on While we're on the subject, did you have a comment to that? It's going
Well,
to change or flip.
Yeah, with the pensions, it just so happens that New Jersey has the lowest funded pension in the entire country.
Really?
We only it only covers 40 cents of every dollar. So, if somebody's getting $1,000, a month, let's just say, the pension is only taking care of $400 of that.
But aren't the salaries
So,
here pretty good in New Jersey?
well, that means the other 600 has to come from the taxpayer. This is the $9 billion that they put down, that they plunk down on the pension every year, because the pension only sustains $400. After that, it's broke, so it's got to go to the taxpayer.
But others would argue we have some of the best teaching salaries in the country. So we're starting at a point of higher salaries.
And we're not even proposing that we make any changes to pensions for existing teachers. We're just saying that when new teachers come on board, let's start rolling this out. Teachers who have been hired, they have their deal. They have their contract. That's how they signed in. But why are we not looking toward the future here?
Yeah.
Right. So we're willing to pay them a salary, but we're not making best sense of how to retain them. And
That's right. I mean, for the current one, I think it's a greater number of years before you're vested. With this new plan, you're vested within 5 years or 4 years, something like that. So if you leave with the whole package.
It's your money. You're investing it.
Yeah.
So while we're still on, let's stick with schools for a moment, because we touched on some of the things we can do about the school funding formula. We'll stick with schools a bit, because you had like 5 points that I wrote down, and you mentioned one of them. You're talking about the caps. Preserve the 2% property tax cap to protect the homeowners. Anyone listening, if you're a homeowner, you probably want that 2% protected, right? There were 5 points there I could rattle off, but you might want to mention some of them.
For our school funding
to fix that formula, to make that.
Well, one is to improve transparency. One is to keep the caps. Gosh, you're testing me. This was a report we released last fall. But
you had a great report, and you put in there, give the districts at least 60 days notice of the aid decisions, so that they can have time to figure out what to do about it. That's major. These school districts find out the very last minute.
Right.
Simplify the local fair share calculation. You already mentioned that.
Yep.
And reevaluate and audit the outdated cost assumption. What does that mean?
Yeah, these are all some of the things we had talked about in the previous segment. So it is definitely worth revisiting, but those are, none of those cost money, by the way. So those are all, fairly easy fixes. So
now with these school budgets, a couple of the items are beyond the control of the school board. For example, the health insurance costs have been skyrocketing. So we've got a couple time bombs here, with the pension being one if we don't do something about it, and the other is the state insurance fund, which I think the deeper you get in on that, the worse it looks.
Indeed, and it's not something that we have spent a lot of time analyzing, except for to recommend that it be reimagined. Other states have taken a look at this issue and made changes. The only thing I can say is that we can't leave it as is. There have been double-digit increases over the past 3 years, and it's not sustainable. There needs to be some give and take here. There need to be some changes, and I'm certainly sorry that some people's health benefits may change. I do believe that there's probably a very fair compromise, and most people in the private sector have indeed gone through this change already. This is not a new change. We all survived it, but it's just personally it's not a sustainable plan. And again, if we're not willing as a state to change existing plans, we should certainly be looking to the future for new employees to change plans. That's the least we can do, is to look forward. Thankfully, I'm not sitting at that negotiating table, and I don't know what is available to us, but status quo is not working.
Yeah. So I guess we've covered what they call the fiscal cliff that we're approaching.
You know,
It seems
a couple
that-
things I think we should mention is there's an outmigration of our higher net worth individuals, right? And so we are losing tax revenue. And I think it's worth mentioning that. And again, this does have to do with our corporate friendliness, right? There are a lot of things that impact that. There are policy changes being made in Trenton that are unsustainable for residents of New Jersey and those who have the ability to leave. And there's a lot. If you go to the Tax Foundation, is doing phenomenal work on this, the outmigration of individuals, right? And it's worth following that. People in higher taxed states are leaving for lower tax states. And what happens is that burden of tax revenue is simply being pushed down to the next level. So, for example, you have a dual income family of, say, now a police officer and a teacher, and they're now fitting into that category of the highest taxed individuals of the state. And so we're just pushing down that tax burden into our middle. It's a disturbing trend in our state.
We have about 10 minutes. What do we want to touch on? We didn't talk about the energy debacle yet, did we?
No, I think we have 1 minute.
1 minute.
So we should talk
Okay, I'm
about
looking at a different clock. I'm looking at this clock here.
we should talk about your gala coming up.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. We're so proud of our gala. Last year was the inaugural event. We're proud of our Thomas H. Kane Leadership Award. And this year will be held on September 30th, and we're honoring Senator Bill Bradley. One of the missions of our gala is to really talk about civil discourse and to celebrate leadership and contributions to the state of New Jersey. And I'm really looking forward to the event. I hope you can join us.
Okay, and where was that held again?
It will be held in Jersey City.
Jersey City.
Mateo is the restaurant. And you can find out more at gardenstateinitiative.org.
Okay. And
you did mention energy. You've got to have me back on to talk about energy. That can take a whole segment.
Okay.
Yes. Just this, you mentioned that if we would suspend our participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, that
Or
could
the
reduce
RGGI,
CO2
yes.
emissions by nearly 5 million tons, delivered 279 million in direct energy bill savings for consumers, and generate 135 million in state revenue. You don't need to comment on the figures, but what is this Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative?
You know, if I boil it down, it's really a tax for New Jersey energy users. You know, and there are states that are opting out of it, and there are ways for us to reimagine how we fit in with Reggie. And certainly there's some good organizations doing work on this, and we should talk more about it. It's more than a quick answer. But
what is Reggie? People don't know what that is.
That's the regional. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, but I mean, is it a group of states? Is it a group of businesses? That's what I'm asking.
It is. It's an opt-in for states to be part of this. Yeah, no,
Great.
Of course. But listen, we need to look at our entire energy portfolio in New Jersey, right? Because the New Jersey Energy Master Plan, that the 2024 update, which was released a year late, it really needs to be reimagined. There was this promise of offshore wind that was supposed to supplant, you know, our loss of 8 generation plants in New Jersey. We pulled operating generation plants, always on energy. We pulled it off the grid, and we didn't replace it with anything. And so here we are with this supply and demand issue. We all know our energy demand is going up. We pulled away energy, and here we are. So this is why the cost is going up. There have been a lot of conversations about why our energy bill is going up, and that's why. So we need immediately to really start talking about what is our new energy portfolio in the state, and how can we begin, and in a sustainable, affordable way, how can we have a real conversation about how to supply energy in our state?
Okay, well, thank you. We're going to have to roll. Tell people where we can find you. It's gardenstateinitiative.org.
You got it. And so please follow us on Twitter, and Facebook is very active for us, and LinkedIn. So I look forward to, and if anybody's got questions, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to engage on any of these issues. Thank you so much for having me today.
I think you should run for governor.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, well, that's pretty much our show.
It is.
We have upcoming, we have a couple upcoming guests in the next few weeks. Who we have Assemblyman Yanamort.
And Yanamort's coming up.
Mhm.
This is on July 28th. He's from LD 24, same as Dawn Fantasia.
Mhm.
So up in the upper left-hand corner of the state. He's been another one very active on all the bills. I think what we want to talk to him about maybe is, we could have our pick, but maybe the John Lewis voter bill.
That's one thing to talk
Which is another
Which is first on.
big thing
Who
coming
else do
up.
we have coming up? Rosemary Becky,
Rosemary Becky.
New Jersey First.
From Jersey First.
Mhm.
So, she'll be interesting to find out what Jersey First is up to. I see them all the time, all over.
Mhm.
all over
I know she's
the-
talking about the 529 plans. Some of
Right.
you out there know what a 529 plan is. We won't go into it now. We'll let her talk about it
Right.
later.
So, I think we're done.
I think we're good, and thank you for joining us. And we know you have a lot of things competing for your time. We appreciate you tuning in.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on the New Jersey Statehouse Watch. Join Jack Brangan and Constance Ditzel every second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 7:30 p.m. Watch the show live at njstatehousewatch.com or listen anytime. Download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time on the New Jersey Statehouse Watch.